Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 147B, Tales with TR. I'm your host, Terry Ryan Jr., reminding you that we're now available on YouTube. The last 6 or 7 episodes have been up. Somewhat of a success so far, meaning it hasn't been too much of a blunder. The Hockey Podcast Network has helped me out. Thanks a lot, guys. And that's where you can find it, THPN, at THPN. On Instagram, you can also find that on YouTube, where you'll find my podcast, Tales with TR, under that umbrella. But for right now, I'm pretty excited today. We have a great guest. Let's get right into it. Folks, my next guest comes from a hockey family and has been involved in broadcasting ever since graduating from the Columbia Academy of Radio and Television Broadcasting in Vancouver, BC in 2003. She's been bulldozing barriers in the face of adversity her entire career and recently became the first female to call play-by-play for a nationally televised NHL game. She got her start doing play-by-play during the 2018 CWHL season and hasn't looked back since. These days, she has expanded her ever-growing resume and has added public speaker to her list of talents and accomplishments. She is an awesome innovator, a bodacious broadcaster, a hardworking host, a skilled speaker, a tenacious traveler. She's not a disc jockey, but grew up with hockey. Her uncles Brian and Dennis played hockey, not tennis. Some people called her Hex back at CKIX. The Beatles had a John, and her cousin was named Ron. He was a goalie with soul and even scored a goal. She worked on politics, not puck, when she was down on her luck. Then one day, she dreamt of doing play-by-play, and in a glance, she got her chance. The CWHL, you see, were on national TV. And as if on cue, she made her debut. She wasn't a snob and did a good job, although it was swell. Next stop, NHL. There were stumbles and falls, but she broke down many walls. She's looked up to a ton. My daughter is one. Folks, a new hockey season will be starting next fall. Please welcome to the show. It's Leah Hextall. How you doing, Leah?
Like, Tara, that is probably the best intro I've ever had in my entire life. That was very poetic, sir. Very well done. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. That means a lot because you have had many, many intros, and I'm fascinated. I mean, most of my guests, including yourself, I have a good idea about their past. I follow a little bit. I know we've never met in person, but I know all about you. I thought I did. But what I've come to realize in the last few days has been to say mesmerizing would probably be an understatement. So we'll get into it. But what I want to know first is, how are you? Where are you now? And what are you up to?
First of all, I'm good. I always find that if you have your health, then you're great. That's number one. 2, I am sitting looking out at the city of Winnipeg, Manitoba in my home office. So that is where I am located in the Peg, as they say. I am a Manitoba girl, not from Winnipeg. I'm very clear about that. No harm to Winnipeg on that. I do live here, but I'm a Brandon girl. And then that's really about it. I'm just spent my morning prepping because I'm hitting the road in a few days and won't really be back until the end of the regular season. And then, as we know, it's the best time of year. The playoffs will start and away we go.
So I'm as interested in your personal journey, hockey just being the vehicle, like many people on here. So, I mean, I love hockey. I'd love to pick your brain on all things current. But I really am fascinated by just as much by your upbringing as where you are now. Maybe because I don't know as much about it. I just know that a few hockey legends are in your family, and your father, Randy, who I didn't even realize, like, he played a pretty high level of hockey, went to St. Louis Blues camp. I saw you speak at that TED Talks type of thing. What was that you were at?
So that was the coaches site, and they have a conference at the University of Michigan every year where coaches from grassroots level all the way up to the National Hockey League come, and they've got Mike Babcock there and all these different NHL guys who come to teach from collegiate levels. It's great. So it was my first, I've done a bit of work with them before, and Aaron Wilbur was kind enough to give me the platform to speak about some things that I learned after my first season in play-by-play in the NHL last year with ESPN.
That's interesting. So I really picked up a lot from that conversation or that speech. First of all, just off topic, but when you're given those, because I've done those, and I was a few years ago, really survival of the fittest. I tried stand up, but it was because it was a gig I got paid to do, and I was really down on my luck. So I took it, and it was a weird time to do stand up when I was going through a divorce, and Didn't know where the next paycheck was going to come from. It was weird, but it was an experience that one of the wildest experiences of my life. But during that time, I started to do some public speaking. People ask me for all different reasons. Maybe they need that, quote unquote comedy, whatever. Usually it was just stories out of my book. Some people need, want to hear about somebody who failed in the public eyes and, faced adversity. Again, like yourself in a way, not like yourself, but, I was a first round pick. I didn't live up to my potential. So there's all kinds of reasons to publicly speak. But what I found is that the more I did it, the more I would pick up on feedback. And I found the ones like those real hard. There's lights in my face, and people, I don't know if they're instructed to, but I've done them in auditoriums, and they, clapping is not part of it and laughing is not part of it. So you don't get a feedback, even though it's poignant. Everything you're saying, like people are hanging on the edge of their seats, I would think. But as a performer or as the person giving the speech, are you just used to that because of your broadcasting career, or because it still gives me the heebie-jeebies when I can't see the people very well, the lights are in my eyes, and it looked like that was the situation. And again, there's no feedback. I'm just speaking, and I'm hoping I'm entertaining, but I'm not sure. How did you get used to that?
I think there's a lot of people who believe just because you're a broadcaster and you speak on television that you can public speak, but that's actually not true at all. Most of the broadcasters I know are terrified of public speaking. It's so different having this round little camera that the red light goes on and you talk, because you don't see anybody. You don't think about the fact that you're in the home of 1 million people or whatever it may be, your audience, right? So it's so different in that way. But for me, I was the kid who I knew in school from the time I was probably 10 years of age that if we were assigned a presentation or a speech that we had to do, that I was getting an A. No matter what the topic was, no matter what it was, I just always felt comfortable. I actually entered like Festival of Arts public speaking competitions when I was growing up.
So, okay. Before you go further, you mean you knew you were getting an A for the presentation part or the journalistic kind of research part?
No,
or both.
It's more the presentation. I mean, I've always loved, I think my whole life, I've been one of those people that I can take information and make it into entertainment. So that whatever message I'm trying to get, I'm going to communicate and facilitate it well to the audience so that it becomes something that they want to listen to and that can entertain them. But at the same time, you're going to learn something and you're going to take something away from it. So that's, I think, where I don't want to call it a gift, but when I'm public speaking, I think that's why I've always been strong in it, because I find a way to connect with that specific audience and I tailor the conversation to really hit them. And I think that's what all really strong public speakers do. And then there's just the natural performance. I mean, I grew up, the reason I'm a broadcaster is because I played sports my whole life and I loved it. And that's where it was my happy place. But the other happy place was on stage. I did plays, I did musicals. I just loved performing. I've always been that since I was a little kid. Performance was something that I was not afraid of, even though I am actually a very shy person. And I'm one of those introvert extroverts, right? So it's when I tell them, like, I hate getting my picture taken. People say, what do you mean? You're on television. I'm like, it's totally different. When I'm on TV, I'm bantering with the audience and I'm talking to them like I would with somebody. I always think if I'm having a beer with someone, that's how I want to present to the audience when I'm on camera, right? Like, we're talking hockey, we're talking sports. I want you to feel like you know me. And so that's kind of how I always try to do it and be very conversational. But it's just, I'm not necessarily that person who's out there. When I'm at home, and it takes a lot sometimes to get me out. Like, I'm very introverted. I like my own time. I like my own space. It's probably why I'm 43 and single, because I can't imagine sharing space with someone full time.
That's the biggest thing for me. Yeah. But you know what I think might work? I don't know. I've had a few friends that don't, it's the sharing space thing for me. They're like, have you ever tried not actually living with the person? And I haven't, but I think there's something to that. There's so many conventions and in society when it comes to companionship that I think that just might be it. For me, it's sharing space. And listen, so to go back, that's because those are interesting tips. I find I've done a lot of public speaking at this point, and I'm always nervous before it. People think that it's just like, and sometimes people think it's easy for someone like me, like you said, because I'm behind a camera a lot of the time or in front of it.
Yeah.
I'm an entertainer. Yeah. You know what's funny? not that you asked, but now that you talk about it. So growing up, if I had to give a public speech on, say, World War II, I would be terrified. I wouldn't want to do it. The way that I would get myself into it, I remember, they have those public speeches starting in grade, I think 4 or whatever. This was in grade 7 or 8, so we've been doing it for a few years. So if it was factual, I couldn't do it very well. But I remember I did one call, if I was 5 centimeters tall and I explained what I would do, I would put myself in like one of those table hockey games and score a million goals. I would, this and that, whatever I would do when I was 12 or 13. And I found I could do that because I'd come out and introduce myself as TR, and it was like this character that I'm still kind of playing in a way. But so I find when I get out there, if I can bring a story in there, even one that might be kind of not fabricated, but some that obviously might be fictionalized, and then bring it in to a relevant place. And maybe that's the actor in me. Like, a lot of people think that acting is just wanting to be on stage in front of people, but a lot of it for me was being somebody else and being comfortable to do that. So when you are on stage giving this, again, because there's a little bit more context, what you're doing now, I'm assuming a lot of the time, is speaking not only for you, not only for like women in Canada or in Brandon, or like really you're speaking for your gender. Like, like what you did was break down what you've done and what you continue to do, or break down barriers. So do you feel pressure there? I know if I get egg on my face, it's only me. Maybe I've stepped over the line and told a story I shouldn't have, but I'm the only one going to burn. You're always being judged. So does that factor into the public speaking?
It does in a certain way where, it's something last year where, last year was my first season with ESPN and first time calling play-by-play full time. And for those who don't know, prior to that, I'd called 1 NHL game, and I'd called 8 women's games and about 6 NCAA games. So at the time, working in politics in a completely different job for the Premier of Manitoba at the time. So I was doing this on my weekends to try to learn how to do play-by-play. And so I really look at it like I got jumped in. Even though I was a qualified broadcaster and I'd been covering hockey, and it wasn't, ESPN knew that I had experience covering the sport. They knew I had experience as a broadcaster. I was qualified. I had worked for them as a Ringside reporter at the World Cup of Hockey, and, my resume spoke for itself. But, they also knew that I wasn't the most experienced play-by-play. But what they did was say, she just needs an opportunity. Yeah. And so they took the swing. And no matter how much crap ESPN takes, because they're top dogs, as we know, you're always going after the leader. I will give them full credit for their intent behind that. And that's something that I speak about when I am speaking, is that they intentionally put me in that position, which I will absolutely say other networks who I had called play-by-play for were not willing to give me a full-time shot. They were. So, when you become the first, which I did last season, and you're not the best by any means, because you're learning on a national stage in front of a national audience, you're going to take it. Whether you're female or male, you're going to take it. Yeah. But what I learned last year is that we're not where I thought I was. And it's not just about the audience. We know that this world is in a bit of a different place right now, and social media is not the place to make your judgments about anything because it's just so toxic.
Don't know how you even look at it.
Yeah, and I can't anymore. And it was something that I had to disconnect from completely for my mental health. But it's just one of those things where, I carried a lot of that last year, where I was like, you're the first, but you don't want to be the last. And when you're hearing all these comments on social media that, Leah Hextall, you suck, you only got this because you're female, you got this because your last name, you got this because of your gender. And so many people would sit there and say, well, no, it's not about her gender, she's just not good. But then a guy would get the comment, you suck. And I would get, and I'm going to swear here, sorry, Terry, but you suck, you stupid bitch. Like, if it's not gendered, why are you adding that on? And that's where the majority of the comments, you see the misogyny and whatnot. And so you're sitting there going, quite frankly, is this worth it? Because this is taxing. And I had a big sit down with myself after last season, wondering if I could go on. And at the same time, though, to your point, and a long-winded way to get around it is, of course I have to go on, because I'm the first. So I'm not going to be the last. And I'm not going to let those type of comments drive me out of it. And it has nothing to do with me being female. It has everything to do with the way I was raised and by my parents and the integrity I have within myself. And I know that I'm going to get better because I'm a hard worker, and I know that I'm a skilled broadcaster, and it's just going to come. And it has come this year. I've taken steps. That's, the way it goes. But it's amazing to me how many times I have ran into women and the comments I get from them. Like just coming back on the plane and seeing a customs officer when I'm going through, because I travel all the time, and just, her stamping my passport and going, keep going. We know what you're doing. The fact that you feel like you're seen.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, that would be everything to me.
It breaks, like every time I get very emotional whenever it happens, because it just means so much to me that whether these women are hockey fans or not. And after I did my speech last year at the coach's site, and it came out, and the New York Times picked up an article about it and whatnot, and it just was amazing. As much flack as I take for it, just how many women reached out to me, and men, which is probably the more important thing. And, for me, the biggest thing, Tiara, is just normalizing it. I don't want it to be that a woman's calling a game. I just want it to be that Leah's calling a game the way that it would be Terry or John or Bob.
Yeah. I think most people, I shouldn't say, I can't, and I don't, I can't not identify with what you went through or go through really on a daily basis, because I don't think that's ever going to leave. It's just so, now you can't escape it because of social media. Maybe, but there's always, look, the first through the wall is going to get bloodied, right? Like that's the way it goes. And everywhere. I mean, Bob Cole, how legendary is he? But he's from down the road here. Bob Cole was doing senior games when he first got his opportunity. I just read his book. I mean, a lot of people said the same about him. Again, not that he's identifying with the same things that you went through, but people that are first, people that get knocked down, there's all kinds of adversity. It's just that before, I don't know what the word is. It wouldn't be as mind-numbing, because people just didn't have a say, that are so ignorant and that don't move the ball any further down the road when they're being like that. But yeah. I think that those people have this voice that might seem louder than it really is. I was unaware, Leah. I know people in the broadcasting world. If I said your name, I generally am met with a smile or a positive vibe because of those things. And when you, I gotta say it, and you can curse on here, but the one that jarred me, I'm like, man, I've never heard any. It'll be hard for me to put to the person I hate the most to say a sentence like you heard, or paragraph. Someone said to you, "You're no good." I wish I'd shut that mouth up, put my cock in it, and after that I'd put a gun in it and blow your head off. Is this right? I'm close to. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's close to what was said, right?
Yeah. It was. Okay. It was an email I received after becoming the first woman to call the Stanley Cup playoff.
Now Bob Cole isn't getting that at the worst of times, okay? So I don't know how. Honestly, man, like that almost. I had to sit back and take a breath. Yeah. I'm like, that's hatred. Even if you don't agree, man. I don't know. Like there's a way to go about things. And to me, that's not only ignorant. It'd be enough to set me back and say, fuck it. Now, what keeps you going?
Is that I love it. Yeah. I mean, the big thing for me right now is, I have a hybrid position with ESPN. I do play-by-play, and I also am a reporter. I do the Ringside reporting for our games, and I've spent a lot of time, I've been doing games on ABC reporting this year, which for a kid who started at CKX in Brandon to be on ABC proper is just, I can't, it blows my mind.
It is quite a story.
Getting these opportunities, right? So, but with the play-by-play, it's really simple. I'm at an age where, listen, I could have just been a Ringside reporter for ESPN. That was in the cards. I could have been doing it and loving it because I love that role. But I pitched to them. I said, listen, it's time. It's time, and I can do this. If you're willing to take the swing, I'm willing to do the work. And that's the thing, is that you're not going to have great games all the time, but every time I step into the booth, I know that I'm going to make a mistake, which I'm going to learn from, which is going to make me better. And this season, I have seen the progression in my cadence, my tone, my vocabulary, just my confidence within the booth when I step into it. I've also heard from, you talked about the people outside and that noise that seems louder than it really is. It's really a big part to focus on those in the arena. And what I mean by that is, just those who understand how hard it is to do this, and those who make the decisions, and those who are actually aware of what you're trying to do and supporting you in it, like my bosses and my producers and my color analysts. And all of them have talked to me this year about the steps I've taken forward. So I'm feeling it, they're seeing it. And that just comes with work and repetition. It's like anything. It's like when you play a sport, you're not going to be great at,
No, it's like a rookie.
But as you grow and develop and you do the reps, eventually it becomes like a natural skill. And it's going to take me probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 years before I'm an elite play-by-play, but I'm going to get there. That's it.
I can see that. Talking to anybody with half a brain would realize that I like to, again, other than step on the ice with skates, there's a lot of similarities. You grew up with hockey. I don't know about other sports that you follow, but it seems that you follow hockey the most. I would be surprised if you didn't. You put all that time in. So therefore, if you're covering hockey a lot, the summers probably have that same hockey mentality. You're away from the job or away. So there's a lot of parallel thinking going on, or parallel worlds that you're leading. It's much like a hockey life without having to put on the skates. And the adversity that you're seeing, that I'm seeing off the ice, again, it's because there's always going to be traditionalists. And I think you might be so diverse, again, not to me, but I'm just trying to be honest, because people can hear it. They're not used to hearing it. If I say, oh, this girl directed a movie, that's a barrier broken. People oh, really awesome. That's good for, that was a good movie. But you're hearing everything. People, the whole situation is different, right? I've seen you and Cassie do a couple games the whole thing, there was an all-female night. Am I wrong? You were involved in that?
Yeah. And the great thing is the game I'm about to go do in Seattle, it's myself and Cassie in the booth, and then Linda Cohn is our reporter. And the thing that ESPN has is, and this is not me, waving the pom-poms, but it's just the truth, is we could honestly do full female broadcasts with me in the play-by-play role, whether it's Cassie or AJ Malesko, Linda, Emily in the reporter role. We could do that multiple times. It's not a one-off like I've been a part of before. It is literally built into the people that we have hired. So that's, but I get it. I get that everybody, first of all, I have broadcasters that I prefer their calls over other broadcasters. Some people are a little too much for me. I get it. Everybody has their preference and they're allowed to. If you don't like my call, totally understand. If you don't think I'm up enough and I'm boring and I'm monotone, whatever, that's fine. But you add on the fact that my voice is just naturally going to be higher. I cannot do anything about that. I'm not going to try to do anything about that either. I'm not going to try to go into a low voice. I've had that happen to me earlier in my career, back earlier on when I was an anchor. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that, because then it takes away all my natural ability and the cadence and my excitement of the game when something happens.
Yeah.
But it's a female voice, and we've never heard it narrating a game. And we have to understand that, I think, in broadcast, and I was in those roles as a host and reporter, those traditionally have been acceptable because there's so many women doing it now. And the woman is there and the 2 male analysts, The ringside reporter is female because the 2 people in the booth are men. Well, suddenly you have someone with 2 X chromosomes standing in the most important position of the broadcast. And I say that with humility, but it's the truth. It is, you are narrating, you are directing traffic. It all comes through you, everything on the ice. And that's why, again, it's the most work and it's the hardest skill that we do in any sport. But hockey, 10 times more because of the speed of the game. So it's just one of those things that it is going to sound different. And the best part of this year is I've actually had people email me and say, I heard you last year and I didn't like you. And that's completely fine. But they're like, but what I've realized this year is I'm getting used to your voice, and that your call is no different than many others.
Exactly.
My ears are not used to it. And so I get that. And it's going to take time for it to settle in. And that's okay, because, hopefully I'll have the time. And if that's the case, eventually there's going to be a whole generation, TR, that'll grow up hearing me call games.
Yeah.
Will mean nothing. When they hear another woman do it, it won't even shock their system in any way, which is the goal.
Yeah, that's great. And like I said, good on you, because you got to be tough to do that. Like, you really got to be. And earlier I compared being a first-round pick, not living up to my potential. I mean, I skated around in the NHL. I'm not tripping over my bottom lip. I'm not trying to there's not as much of a parallel as you would think. I just mean public adversity. And so if I know what that's like, and I didn't like reading the papers, and most of what I went through was before social media comments. I'm not kidding with you. You got real tough skin. Now, here's the other thing. I don't want to take the whole podcast and talk about that, because there's also, because you talk about the adversity, and I mean, that comment was the worst I've ever heard thrown at me. I've heard more curse words, but that, the vision of that person, it took time to say those words to you. I just can't believe it. But outside of that, you're tough. You got a great story. There's lots of positives here. Now, I want to know, because we are going to go back. I love the CKIX story. I didn't realize you started there. But tell me before we get there, as long as we're on the topic, how is it to sit between those benches between the players? No one was doing it when I played, not that I'm aware of. It came in right after. Pierre McGuire became famous for it. And I know that a couple of times, I thought your comment to Simmons was funny, by the way. That's probably an example of people overreacting because you're a girl. If that was any guy that said it, it would be. But anyway, again, I laughed. But how, just the whole experience, first of all, and the comment to Simmons, how did that end up going over? And basically 2 questions in one.
Yeah, so Between the Benches is fabulous. It's, last year was the first time I had a chance to do it. ESPN came to me before we started in our first year last year and said, what do you think if we put the reporter between the benches?
Oh, I can't imagine.
And I went, well, that's a view I've never had as a reporter, so I'm not sure how it will be, but I think it's an amazing thing to try. So I've had the luxury of the majority of the games I do when I report, I'm there. And besides the fact that I really have to think about my wardrobe because it is cold down there, other than that, it's amazing. I mean, there's a lot of times that you don't hear anything, but there's a lot of times where things happen throughout a game. Like I've had guys come in at, a hit comes in opening night and I've got a stick in my hand the next thing you know, and I'm giving it back to the player as he skates. You're so there, which you just feel in the game more than when you report outside of it. But what I love about it is that I already appreciated the game. I appreciated how talented these players were. Now that I'm on ice level, forget it. I mean, the things I have, like the speed, the skill, the size of these men, it is unbelievable. And, last year I covered the Battle of Alberta in the playoffs, and to be in between the benches and watching McDavid and Draisaitl on one foot at the time, but just seeing McDavid move, just seeing Colorado come at waves, because that's what they did. Every line was a wave after wave.
Yeah.
You felt it down there. So it's amazing. And then with, it was last year, just to set it up quick, it was Tampa and Toronto. I actually am doing Tampa and Toronto in a couple weeks between the benches, so we'll go back there and see how that goes. Pat Maroon was beaking at Wayne, calling him soft, and during the game, it's my job to report what I'm hearing to a certain extent. I absolutely appreciate my role in that there's certain things I'm going to report, and as a hockey gal, there's certain things I'm not going to touch. So, and he was beaking, and it was part of the storyline, and I was telling what Simmons was saying to him and what Pat was saying back and calling him soft. So I said to my producer, I said, get me Simmons for in between, and that was it. And I knew I was going to ask him this. And I said it.
That's great. You're confident. So you can't be like this innovator if you're not confident. You got to be confident in your decisions.
Question. This was the storyline of the first period between the two. It was about to be a first round playoff matchup. It was that time of year. This was setting the table. And I knew they were going to end up going, which they did the next period right in front of me. They dropped the gloves. Yeah. It just was so poetic. But I asked Wayne at the end of it is, I was under the impression they had a history. So I said, do you guys have a history? He said, actually, we've never fought before. And I said, so then why is he calling you? And I said, but he's calling you soft. Are you? And, I have a mic in front of my mouth, but the tone of my voice, I know Wayne Simmons is not soft. Yeah, I'm very understanding. I have interviewed Wayne before. Everybody knows that. That's why you can ask the question. And I get we're not supposed to say soft in hockey, but this was the storyline. And Wayne, like a friggin' pro, gave me a great answer. And then the next period, they dropped him. And it was, I have to tell you, my bosses loved every second of it. That's what I'm there to do. I won't say his name, but I had a producer at TSN call me the next day and say, that's pushing boundaries. That's what we need in hockey.
Yeah.
And
that's treading the line in the line of fire too, because
exactly.
like you can often go too far. That was just enough to just tread it over the line artistically. I
I
loved it.
would never have asked a player that if it hadn't been part of the storyline. That's
Yeah.
just common. That's me being in my job and the experience that I have doing it. But a certain ex-ref decided to get on Twitter and hammer me, and it started this
I saw
great
that.
debate, as it always does. And since then we've seen him get into more trouble, and so that just tells me everything I need to know about that comment. But it created this huge debate, and it became more than just about what I asked. It came more about gender, and it was crazy. Like, I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. How does
people
that?
doing welfare checks on me to see how I was doing, but I was like, I just stayed off Twitter the whole day, and at the end of it, I said, I love Twitter with a winky face. Hope everybody had a good night. Because quite frankly, I was doing my job. Even my cousin Ron, who's the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and obviously played back in the day, and with Philly as a netminder, I did a game the next week there, and he took me aside and he said, okay, so what happened? And he's like, are you worried about the players maybe thinking, well, what? I said, no, Ron, because you know me. You know I'm not going to ever report on something that will hurt a player. That's just not who I am. I'm not trying to get a gotcha moment. And he's like, yeah, but the players don't all know you. And I said, the players are aware. They're fine. But that's what I mean. Like, I had family members like Ronnie who was concerned about perhaps me stepping over the line. So I loved the debate about the question. I loved the debate about the question because as a broadcaster, it's pretty vanilla. Like, a lot of the stuff we see from players is pretty vanilla. And this got
as is the same that we see from broadcasters nowadays. No one wants to tread the line. No one wants to step over the line.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I'm not putting you in this mix, nor am I trying to suck up to you. It's just a fact. A lot of people say that about the players. Oh, there's not enough personality. I'm like, they say the same about reporters.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is the thing. Twitter years ago, for that reason, like, I consider myself a tough person, mentally, physically, whatever it would be. But I just found there was so much negativity, and it wasn't just me, but just anything I commented on. Find where these people come from. Are they just sitting in the upper decks waiting to pounce, just in their pool of negativity in their mom's basement? I can't handle it. So I just go on there to promote my pod once in a while. I'm completely oblivious to what goes on there.
Yeah,
so my experience of that situation was just like a few comments on YouTube. I listened to in podcast form a lot of the Canadian sports shows from all over, Sportsnet, TSN, and more. And I just heard it commented on there. So I guess people had a bit of respect for the job. And I didn't hear all this vitriol at all about it. I thought it was like, oh, little over the line, Leah's pushing buttons. And then it was over. I didn't realize it got that bad.
Yeah. And the thing is, I am pushing buttons. Like, I'm in Philly the other week.
I see that's your thing.
Yeah. I'm in Philly the other week, and I intentionally asked, they've just fired, Fletcher. Danny Brier's in there as the interim. It's the day after it happened. We're doing the Battle of Pennsylvania, which was so watered down, it was embarrassing, but that's another story. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I asked for James Van Riemsdyk. I asked for JVR because he was the guy that they didn't get traded, and Fletcher's gone now. Like, I intentionally ask for specific players so that I can ask a game-related question, and then I can turn to him and say, James, this has been a volatile season. But sometimes we don't know what's going on from the outside, what's going on in the room, and what have you learned? And he gave me a beautiful, thoughtful answer with information, entertainment, and that's what I really feel the players are looking for. Like, you got to put some thought into what you're asking. And so my second question is always, and just the way I was raised in the school that I came from, which I was taught as a Ringside reporter, is game question first, and then maybe we can get into something that's maybe a bigger storyline, which is threading through the game. And, it goes back to the Simmons thing. I asked him a game-related question first, and then I brought it in.
It's funny, like, you are educated on it. People forget as well. I mean, you did go to school and have a fucking diploma. You know what I mean? On top of being from a hockey fan, on top of watching a lot of hockey, on top of doing the Wheat Kings.
That's the thing. You start a junior. Like, I started with covering the Brown Wheat Kings in my first job, also doing midget. So and MJHL and all these levels, and I've covered hockey at every level up to the top. And so, first of all, there's players in the NHL that I covered back in junior, and it's amazing to watch them in this journey. And I still love junior hockey to this day. And, and you learn what you can push boundaries on and what you can't. And that's part of the experience of the job, is just knowing your spots. And listen, there's times where I'm not going to touch anything. I'm going to keep it bland. I'm just going to ask what I have to ask, and that's it. Like when you're interviewing coaches live in the game, I'm not really going to play with them because they're in it. They are in it in a way that, like, this is commercial break, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They're trying to get guys out on the ice. You're on their bench, which is, even that I feel bad.
I would find that interview awkward every time. That would be a tough one.
And TR, I come from between the benches. So I have to swing my legs over around, and the guys are sitting, as you know, right there.
Right there.
And I'm like, boys, I'm coming in, and I swing my legs around, and I'm, in my heels and my get up, and, I drop down and I go around, and the assistant coaches, I just squeeze my way. But like, I feel like I got to have a good stretch before, because to get over the boards and stuff and back in between the benches is a bit of a routine.
Yeah. A lot of the routine, like I said, parallels the real game. Now, speaking of that, I mean, you must have an affinity for the game, not only from being Canadian, and most of us are connected to hockey in some way, but your connection is pretty unique. Okay. So you're Brian, there were two Brian Sr. and Brian Jr., correct?
This is Brian Sr. I know, sorry, this is a podcast.
Tell us the story. His big claim to fame, which there were many. But
well, yeah, so my pops, as I refer to him, he's my grandpa, Brian Hextall. He played for the New York Rangers, and in 1940, when they won the Cup, which a lot of us will remember because in 94 when they won, they hadn't won since then. My pop scored the OT winner against Toronto to win it. He had 2 hat tricks in the series, and he was the Art Ross, like what would have been the Art Ross for multiple years. And he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame because of it. He was an elite player for back in the day.
I didn't realize that till I saw your speech. I mean, I knew who Brian Hextall was. I knew he was somewhat of a legend. You don't, watching those hockey history moments and all that, but I didn't realize that level of success, especially during that Cup run. I had no idea.
He was a big time player for them, and so I got to do a game between the benches at MSG last year, and just to stand there and have his banner there and his Hall of Fame rings on my finger, and it was just so dynamite, right? So that's what started it.
Well, did this enter your life when you were like 2? Like your earliest memories are with these NHL? I mean, we haven't brought up Dennis or Ron, so like that must have been, so hockey was a huge part of your life. Even if you hated it, it still would have had to be part of your life. Well, it's every day, right?
Exactly. Because, I'm a Manitoba girl, and we have 3 generations in the game. They've all been, born, bred, raised through the hockey system in Manitoba, and then went on to play the game. My dad himself in junior won a Centennial Cup, which would have, it's called the Centennial Cup again now for Junior A, and went to St. Louis Blues training camp. But back in the day, I mean, he didn't make it his first camp, and his dad was like, well, if you didn't make it, then you're not going to, you know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy, because nowadays he would have been in the system, and he was a beautiful skater and a great scorer.
Won the Centennial Cup?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a huge trophy.
And it's
Canadian Junior
actually hosting the Centennial Cup in Manitoba in May this year, so I'm hoping I'll get out there if I'm done my playoff run. But it's just, it was always there. As soon as people meet me, my entire life, especially here in Manitoba and in Canada, as soon as they hear my last name, the first question is, are you related? And you never actually know who they're going to bring up. When I was growing up, it was very much Ron because he was playing. So obviously he was topical. Still get a lot of recognition from that today. But, then sometimes it's Brian or Denny, or sometimes it's, my dad loved watching your grandfather. If you get, when I go to MSG, there was an usher who remembered watching my grandfather. Yeah.
My dad played pro in the WHA. And
that's classic.
A little bit in the eye, and I heard Brian all the time. Like Ron, I was living it. I remember Ron scoring a goal. I'm coming of age. I'm like 9-10 years old. Born in '77. Ron was definitely on my radar more every day, looking at the TV, because he was one of the best goalies in the world. He was such a hothead, so he was on a lot of high. I mean that in a good way. He was on a lot of highlights, or at least in an interesting way. But my dad would talk about Brian, like, as the legend he deserved to be. It's kind of falling out of people's consciousness now.
Sure.
He was a huge fan of Brian Hextall.
It was before TV, and I think he played in one of the first televised games. Doc Emmerich actually gave me that little tidbit back in the day. But It was always there, and it was always stories around the kitchen table. And, I've heard countless stories, like unbelievable stories. I'll do one real quick one. So my pops, Brian, unfortunately, like later in his life, he had to get both of his legs at the knee amputated. So he was, so obviously,
Diabetes?
I don't know exactly. It was clogged. Like he eventually, unfortunately, passed away from a heart attack. My whole family has like clogged, arteries or something like that.
Yeah. Totally get it.
Yeah, I think it was a jam job down there that, today he probably wouldn't have had to go that way, but back in the day.
Yeah.
And so, my dad is playing with the Portage Terriers and they're away. And, he's skating and somebody in the audience yells out, and this was right after my pops had his legs amputated, "Hextall, you skate like your dad." And, it was very well known in that community because my pops lived there, like that he had his legs amputated. My dad in his skates went over the plexiglass into the stands, and about 5 of the guys followed him on his team. This is when hockey was hockey. And I know people don't agree with me, but I miss it. I miss the hate in our game.
The chaos.
I miss it, like
the unknown.
Yeah, my dad had a series with Portage against Humboldt, and Humboldt wouldn't come back and finish the series and just disqualified themselves during the playoffs because they were scared of them. Like, it was just crazy back in the day. And, and I miss that a little bit. But I just grew up with nothing but stories and hearing these crazy things, but never played it myself. Never have played. I've had to learn the game from the outside in, and it's probably the thing I'm most proud of. People always go, "Oh, well, she's a Hextall." No. My very first job covering the Wheat Kings, I didn't know how to read a stat sheet. I had to go home that night and say, "Dad, what is offside?" And he
didn't know how to read the stat sheet.
Didn't know how to do any of it. I had to learn it.
So one of my favorite quotes by you is, I'm paraphrasing again, I wrote it down. Looking at that fresh glass, meaning ice, I guess, outside, and wondering which stories are about to be told. Or I guess at a rink, looking at it before the period starts. So, I mean, that's pretty poetic. So you didn't play. That was going to be my next question. But if you didn't play, where does that come from? Your family being Canadian, being from Manitoba, all of which Canada hockey comes in high up in each one of those lists. So, if you're Canadian, of course, you're in some way connected to hockey. You might hate the sport, but you're connected. But you're ultra connected. But outside of that, is there something outside of the obvious that connects you to this game and makes your love for it so deep?
I think honestly, it's just about my family. I just have always liked being at the rink. And when I was a little kid, we were always, every night we were out on, the local rink.
Okay, this plays into what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there you
playing
go.
Street hockey out front. Like I didn't play organizationally, but that's what we did. I grew up in northern Manitoba from the time I was 5 to 11. We were outside all the time. And that's what we did in the winter. And that's what we played. And but I was out there in my figure skates because I figure skated. And, I didn't even do hockey skates until I was an adult, and I tried to toe pick to stop, and I went right over on my ass because I was like, well, there's no toe pick there, and this is a completely different blade and stroke and everything else. So you learn very quickly. But it's just, I used to go with my dad to his, senior men's hockey games.
Yeah.
And I just, there's something about it. And for some reason, as soon as I started my job, listen, I was like, I should probably do sports. I love sports, and I should probably try to get into hockey because it just makes sense tactically. But I loved, from the very first time I started covering the Brown and Wheat Kings, just going to the rink, being at the rink. I fully expect one day, even when I'm done this broadcast thing, I could see myself doing other things in hockey. It's just something about it and the culture of it, and just, take the good and the bad.
And you're gaining so much knowledge. I mean,
I learn every day. Like, it doesn't matter that I've been doing this for almost 20 years. Like, every time I work with an analyst, they say something that I learn. Our rules analyst, Dave Jackson, who's ref for 25 years, a little tidbit, which some people might know, but, the high stick, right? The guys immediately, let's see if I'm bleeding. And everybody thinks they have to be bleeding. They don't. It's injury. I just learned that last year. It has nothing to do with the blood.
That's it, right? And now it's in your toolbox, and it'll be in there forever. It's all about gaining knowledge,
exactly.
And using it in experience. It's funny when you said it, when you were speaking, you mentioned it earlier, and in the speech in Michigan, you were talking about like you said, I might not be the best now, but I will be soon. But I just took that for granted. I didn't realize, I guess that comes from all the backlash, but to me, that's obvious. It's like any rookie or in hockey, like you often keep the more inexperienced player because he or she, CWHL, might have, or what's the name of the new girls' league now?
Well, there's
Pacific?
a couple of them, but I follow the PWHPA.
PWHPA, is that what it is now?
Yeah.
Okay, and that for the most part was the CWHL. A lot of those players have transferred over.
PWHPA has the best player. Our Olympians, the best players in the
There
world.
you go. Well, okay, well, same thing. So someone there, you would often keep maybe a younger player or a more boisterous player or a player that's at the rink early because you might see the potential. So to me, I figured that to be obvious and to just to relate to it a little bit. So Jack Michaels, I don't know, have you met Jack?
Yes, I sure have.
So you know what? He was my radio guy in Colorado Springs in the
Really?
West Coast Hockey League in 0102. And I'd gone at a bad ankle injury. It was the first year I came to realization that I probably wouldn't get back to the NHL. So I was a little bit down and I could have gone to the AHL, whatever it was. I was waiting to go to a camp. So I picked Colorado Springs. It's nice. You fly everywhere. I've been playing in Fredericton for a few years and I'll just go there and see what happens. And I ended up getting a tryout in Dallas because of it and ended my career there. But outside of that, Jack was there. I go on, and I could tell, it's just the way he carries himself. I used to joke with him. We went to the grocery store first day I'm there. He was like one of the players came in, and he was getting everything set. And I was like, Jesus, settle down. Like every time he spoke, it sounded like this, like he was a broadcaster. And at first it kind of struck me funny. And then I realized like, this guy, this is the way he kind of conducts himself. We got to the rink and there were all kinds of flaws, Leah. There were all kinds of flaws, but I could tell that he was the Jack Michaels that because I think he's great. I love his call.
Yeah.
And especially he's got these worldwide, but like Jack could have ended up anywhere. I'm so glad with the Edmonton Oilers because he gets to call McDavid and Draisaitl and company every night. And he's got that flair for the dramatic. But I swear to you, I'm not just saying it to stroke your hair, but back then, like I remember saying to the guys, like, I'm like, he is fucking awesome. Like if I end up being the GM of a team or an owner of an NHL team, which clearly wouldn't happen. But I remember saying, I would fucking hire him. And now he made all kinds of mistakes, but you could just tell. And the want, he came to the rink every day with this desire to get better, much like yourself. So using that example, now Jack ended up, of course, doing play-by-play for one particular team. The way that you've gone about it here, you had an idea while doing, but I'll get into the politics in a second. Not that that's not interesting, but I don't want to skip over it, but you're in there, you get a job for a couple of years for really lack of choices. And you come back, but you immediately blaze these trails. And now you've done it's like if Jack got a job with the Oilers like that year in 2002, all of a sudden he's there. Like, what else is there now for you to do? Do you want to become permanent for one team? Do you want to do, maybe the Olympics? There's all kinds of, do you even want to do play-by-play? Are you happy with doing it now? And now maybe there's a job in an organization somewhere for you. What's your goal?
Well, this is what I've learned about goals. I keep them to myself. And it's not me trying to be coy. It's just that I do have them. I know exactly what my plan looks like. I know where I want to end up. I just don't let the genie out of the bottle because there's something that I worked, I got after last year, I got a mental skills coach because I needed it. I needed, just like a player, I was in my head, I was messed up. I didn't have any confidence, even though I just come off of this great season. And I started working with Dr. Cassidy Preston and just changed so much about how I prepare for my games, got off social media, the disconnect, the whose voices I'm listening to, yada, yada. So that's really the only place where I'm pretty open about what I'm trying to achieve. Because we have steps and ways to get there. I will tell you, I would love to call an Olympics, but I'd like to call the women's. It's very important to me that I would love to get the opportunity to call, women's hockey at the highest level. I think it's important that if we have people who are qualified, that women should be calling women's sports. I think it's time for that. And I think that networks like the CBC need to take that into consideration, because I know I've reached out to them in the past and haven't even gotten a response. And I'm just hoping that as I go forward, that they'll see that if you have the opportunity to put 2 women in the booth and one is qualified enough to do it, you should try to make that mark, because it's important for equity in sport, and that's all there is to it. So Olympics, I will give you that. I would like to do an Olympics. I've always wanted to do one. And it's actually a big reason why I started doing play-by-play in the first place, because I did not have the NHL on my radar at all when I started doing this.
I see this going in a very positive direction. You probably won't say it. You don't say your goals out loud, but look, I've got a daughter and I've been paying attention more and more to women's sports. And I know, well, you don't have to be a fool to realize that in Canada, women's sports have come a long, long way on the court, on the ice, on the floor, and off, hence yourself with these opportunities. But with more and more talk, and more inclusion every year. And even though it's a slow process, I know it is, but there's more and more eyes on women's hockey. My daughter here sat here the other night. We watched a game live from Toronto, and it's not sold out right now, but the big games, there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of interest. I really, really just think it's a matter of time. Now, so for that, I think it's symbiotic here. I think a lot of people like yourselves are calling the games as the women's game gets more and more popular, which is fantastic for so many reasons. But now, in the experience that you have, and by the way, play-by-play, I find the hardest of all of it. I've done color. I was injured so much. I remember one year for the St. John's Maple Leafs, Brian Rogers was our guy, and he got sick, and I had to call the game for the second and third period. Wow, I thought it'd be a cakewalk. I thought it'd be a joke. I'm like, of everything, of course I can call a hockey game. Oh man, the nuances to it, and like knowing when to shut your mouth and just let it happen. Oh God, I found it extremely hard. Now, I'm rambling. A couple of years ago, though, my buddy Jeremy Milmock, his kid Luke, is playing college.
Oh, I know that name. I know that name.
Of course I tune in to watch Luke. Jeremy was my captain in Boise, Idaho. So, of course, we all get on the horn. Okay, where are we going to watch from, guys? I went down. I brought it up on my iPad or similar gadget, whatever it was. Brought it up at Green Sleeves, ordered myself a beer, and brought up the game. Luke Milmock, if I'm not mistaken, scored the goal. It was the longest college game ever, or close to, or maybe the longest final.
Yeah,
and who's doing the call? Leah Hextall.
Yeah.
Now, that was kind of when you doing play-by-play came into my radar. I didn't realize there were any women doing it. I didn't take a stance like that. I was happy that Luke scored, but I just realized doing my research that was one of your first experiences. Wow.
You know what, TR? That game means so. That game is the most pivotal of my career.
Yeah, really?
The reason being, it was so. I got laid off by Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada back in 2016 with a bunch of great qualified people because
I remember that happening.
So that gets gassed. Then I can't get a job. I can't get a job as a host or reporter, even though I'm auditioning for everything. So you mentioned not knowing where your next paycheck was. I know that moment. I know that moment of feeling like, I had failed. My identity was gone because if I wasn't a sports broadcaster, who am I? And I couldn't get a job in my industry as an adult at 37 at the time. So I went into politics, got a completely different job. Best thing I've ever done because it showed me I have transferable skills and that I'm not just this.
And did the transferable skills sort of cut you off?
No, that's
but
okay.
I'm curious, and I know I'll forget to ask you, were they obvious? Was it the public speaking, like were they obvious, Brock, or was it like, oh, you know what? I've learned to do research this way in school, and now, or like when you worked in politics, was it very straight up? I've been a host of a show. I've been a broadcaster. This is easy.
No, it was not easy at all. I had to learn so much just about, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about how anything works, cabinet, anything, ministers. I had to learn the whole system.
Yeah.
But what my transferable skill was is the ability to message and my gut in moments for media and all those type of things. And I got to do so much when I was in there, and it was such an incredible experience to the point where I loved it. And one day I may go back to it. I'm not going to do this forever. And and I loved doing politics, and I loved the feeling of, yes, it's a tire fire every day, but, we had some announcements where we created 300 jobs for Manitobans. There's nothing like that.
Could you be a politician?
I would love to be a politician.
Okay, interesting. So not just work in politics.
No, if I go back,
you'd like to drive the ship.
Yeah, if I go back, I think I'd have to be the candidate. And the thing is, the only way I wouldn't is if I found someone that I really believed in and I thought could do a job that I couldn't, and that I could help push forward to, represent and do the things that I'm passionate about. So that's kind of it. And politics is, we give them a lot of crap, but it is not an easy life. It is.
No, it's not.
It's so hard. It's so hard to do.
I think that you have the top 3 or 4 skills that it takes to be a good politician, really, and honesty starts there. But it's, you've been through a lot of those politicians, man. They gotta have thick skin, love them or hate them, whatever side of the fence you're on. When you really get to know them, I know a few on both sides of the fence. I'm somewhere center.
Me too.
Right. And it's a hard, weird time to be that, although I think most people are. But that's another reason I just can't stand Twitter, because
you can't say anything
irrelevant will come
exactly.
an extremist. And it's just like, what do you do, really? But anyway,
it was,
I do think.
So it was like going into politics was amazing, but it was when I was there where I was like, but my love is broadcasting.
Yeah.
And out of necessity, like it was never a dream to be a play-by-play. I was like, where can I be in the class of one? And it was strategic. And play-by-play came real quick in my brain. And I started to just go to American Hockey League games on my weekend and call.
Okay, this one, I can't believe. You went to the games and you broadcast them doing the play-by-play with no recording device, or I should say, recording for yourself.
Okay. I had my phone like this, sitting in the stands. I would call it, because Doc Emmerich told me to do that.
Next to people with TSN, Sportsnet, and you're in your booth then just doing the game into your phone.
Just into my phone, just calling. And I was so bad, and I loved every second of it because it was hard, and I felt like I needed to drink a bottle of wine after every time I did it because it just felt so taxing. But that's what I did, and then called Sportsnet because they had the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and they had 4-game package, and the same man who laid me off gave me the opportunity to do that. So, it's why we don't burn bridges, right? And it was a great experience. And it started with the women's hockey, and then Jim Vassallo from the NCAA on ESPN saw what I was doing. He said, gave me an opportunity to call the NCAA regional tournament in 2019, first woman to do that. It was a beast because you find out on Sunday, your 4 teams, you have 3 days to learn these 4 teams, and then you're going and you're calling back-to-back games and then a big time final. And it was my first time calling men's. It was my first time calling college. It was my first time calling back-to-back games. I made so many mistakes, but I pushed through, and it was valuable experience and the opportunity to get better. But then, then I, no games are on my calendar because the CWHL folds. And those 4 games were my lifeblood. I have nothing. So I started going to Manitoba Junior Hockey League games and calling online just to keep my reps up all the time while I'm working in politics. And then I got my NHL opportunity.
Hard work, man. People don't realize this.
It's not just overnight, right?
I know, yeah.
At the same time, very limited reps, to the point where when I called my one NHL game on Sportsnet, and that's when I became the first woman to, blah, 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 call an NHL game, and on national. And that it was really well received. And I did it alongside Cassie, and it was such a good experience. But then 2 days later, the world shut down because COVID hit.
Is that what happened? That was when that was? That doesn't seem that long ago.
It was
to me, it was well received. I didn't see it personally. I saw snippets, and I heard only good things. That's why
March 8th, 2020, and then the NBA suspended their season 48 hours later, and then the world shut down in sports. And so now there was nowhere for anyone to call. And then when sport came back, it was such limited real estate because of the pandemic, and there weren't as many games going on, etc. So I didn't call for over a year. I couldn't even go and be the crazy lady holding her phone and calling at AHL games.
Yeah, because there's nobody in the fucking ring.
Fans, right? And plus, for my own safety, I just wasn't ready for that. But then NCAA happens again. ESPN hires me again. I go down to Fargo, and the game you're speaking of was we had one game canceled because of COVID, because a kid on Michigan got it. So we called one game, the day before. UMD, University of North Dakota, in the final. Winner goes the Frozen Four, and this game was bananas and pajamas. There was, went into overtime. An offside goal got called back in the second OT because it was offside. We kept going. We're in the 5th overtime, and Luke Milmox of Wilcox, Saskatchewan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Boise, Idaho, and then they moved up there because Jeremy, my captain in Boise, took over the head scouting of Notre Dame.
And so this kid's a freshman at the time. Luke's a freshman. He hadn't played since the third period. So I had not seen his number since the third period. And we're talking how many periods later, right? Almost a full hockey game.
Oh,
and all of a sudden he's got the puck far side. I'll never forget it. And the number registered, and it took me a beat. And I was like, oh, got him. And he went down and hit it. And I was like, and I was just so happy I knew who he was, because it was the goal that ended it. And longest game in NCAA history. And I think myself.
Yeah, that was hard. Like that's all I was looking for, and I didn't realize it was him, because he hadn't been out there. He's the only player that I knew in the game.
It was crazy. He'd just been sitting on the bench, and he got out there because they had to start playing everybody, because it was such a long game. And really what that did is, one, there was a lot of noise around that game because it was so long. I was calling. It put my name on the map.
Yeah.
Two, for me, I went back. It was 1:30 in the morning by the time I got back to my hotel. And we had been on air for 7.5 hours or so, something like that. Yeah. And I went back, and I remember I poured myself a glass of wine, and I just was like, I'm a play-by-play. It was the very first time that I thought, if I can stand in there for, 8 periods of hockey, I'm a play-by-play. And it was the next day where I called the head of ESPN, who I knew, and I knew that and I went to that tournament without talking to ESPN because I wanted to show them what I could do.
Yeah.
Just the hockey god smiled on me. And
better way to do it.
And that was it. And I called and I pitched a hybrid position to Mark Gross, and 2 weeks later, I got my offer. And that was that. So that game was monumental for so many reasons. For me personally, but then for the opportunity to show that I could do this, and do this on an important level with eyeballs watching, and a game that had meaning, and obviously everybody was watching. Like, it was nuts the next day. The amount of, traffic I had in my texts and social media and all those type of things, because, it was just, I think myself, Gordon Miller, and Steve Levy are the only people who have called 5 overtimes.
Really?
Yeah. From what Gordon and Steve.
How could there be, though? Really, I don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't happen very often, right?
No.
So it's a very small club. So I feel very honored that, I just feel honored to have been part of that game. It's a little nugget of history, but it did so much. So Luke was a big part of that. I will never forget that moment. And it was so huge in getting me to where I'm sitting right now. Really.
I love every bit of it, and I love that Luke scored that goal, and that I knew that was in my mind too. When I look back, I was like, yeah, Leah did that, because again, it floats around, right? I didn't think we'd have this conversation, but that is, I mean, to have a minimal amount of games, because there's a lot of games in the hockey world. Each team in the NHL is 82. Then you get the AHL and the junior and college, and so many, and you happened to get one of the biggest nuggets in a decade. Like, it's wild, right? The chances on that. That's why maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's a karmic effect.
The biggest tournament in college basketball is underway, and the action is just getting started on DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Plus, combine multiple bets for a shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings will be featuring parlays and odd boosts all tournament long, so be sure to check out DraftKings Sportsbook every day to see what they have in store. So, what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and sign up with the code THPN. Right now, new customers can bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Again, that's promo code THPN, as in the Hockey Podcast Network, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Next quote. That's my second favorite by you. How do you become a qualified candidate when you can't gain experience because of a lack of opportunity? Is that you, or did you take that from somewhere else? I'm gonna use that in my travel.
No, that's me, if you can believe it or not. And that came out very organically in a conversation after I finished the season, when I called Aaron Wilbur from the head of the coaches site and said, I think I need to come speak to your coaches, because there were some things overheard by coaches last year in the NHL that I overheard that were very damaging to my mentality. And And I just thought I learned a lot about it. And I thought that's a place and a space where we could open some doors for women that I think my journey had something to do with. And I was talking to Aaron, and I just said, how can we become a qualified candidate when we can't get experience because of lack of opportunity? Because we keep hiring the same people in the same circles, and we don't look outside and think maybe there's not the most qualified candidate, but there's a qualified candidate out there, but they need the opportunity to gain the necessary experience.
Which a lot of people need at some point in their lives.
Everybody
right?
needs it.
Again,
because everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people, I think, can identify, not with the exact situation, but if they really look inside themselves, or a lot of these haters, I think they or someone very close has been in that exact situation at some point. I know I have.
Yeah.
Right? I know I have. And I'll tell you this, I don't want to make it about me at all, but again, there are real parallels. In that year, 2016 or 17, whatever it was that Sportsnet made all those layoffs, I was going through that divorce I told you about, and I flew up because there was opportunity there for me here and there. I would do the odd sports show on TSN or Sportsnet, did the Sirius NHL, like whatever I could. Had the odd, again, I was very minimal, but a background actor at the time. So each day was $250 or $300. I got a few of those days. I really didn't know. And so I didn't get a job at Sportsnet. I was kind of led to believe that at one of them I would. I won't tell you, but a major sports network offered me a job, and like it was a lot of responsibility. 25,000. I said, you want me to move to Toronto for 25,000? I can't even start there, right? We can't even have this conversation because I've already lost. So anyway, I didn't know, man. It was around that time too. And I didn't know what I'd do either. Like, gun to my head. I was like, when I came over, and I ended up through this and that, and the folklore degree that I laughed at, really was good that I had it. And it did give me some experience in certain fields, and, working behind the camera and here and there, and yada, yada, yada. I won't go through it, but I'm here now. And I was very much in that situation. And it was like, either, like, when I tell you I don't like doing stand-up, I don't mind public speaking. But like when people expect, what's the deal with these airline peanuts, and you're in like Sudbury, which I go to now all the time, but at the time I had to go there with actual comedians and come out and like this thing on, like, oh man, it's like, whoa, like, and what's funny, what's funny? Most of the comedians, I was opposite. As soon as we would be done, I'd get through it, man. I told stories and stuff. Dale Howardchuk was nice enough. He grabbed me. I was getting $50 a night. Jerry D
One
had
of my
me do it.
favorites. One of my favorites right there, that man. Yeah.
Jerry?
Yeah, Jerry.
Okay, well, this is what happened, Leah. Jerry knew all this. I was going through all, and Jerry said, well, let's work on a hockey show then. So we'll write it. Now, it never went anywhere. We wrote some scribblings. We had some ideas. But we got to know each other, and he's like, you want to open for me? So he said, go get practice. So I went to the Yuck Yucks on Richmond Street there. I went down and did one night. I told one story out of my book, and I got loaded. I didn't know how else to do it. I'm like, I can't get up and be a stand-up comedian. So I did it, and I didn't realize he meant like to open for him at these. So he said, okay, meet me in Oshawa tomorrow. And I came out at the GM Center, 5,000 people. Go ahead. I swear to God, man. A lot of comedians were upset because they were looking for that opportunity.
Oh, for sure.
Jerry paid me a decent dollar. I mean, he got paid a ton. I mean, think about it. Decent dollar, and then he just let me sell books. So my book was coming out that year.
Great.
So I just took him up. I sold a bunch. It got me through 4 or 5 months in Toronto, and then I kind of got my feet. If it not for Jerry and Dale Howardchuk, who, again, Jerry, I was doing that, but I opened up for him a place across Canada. It wasn't more than 6 places, though. Mm-hmm. So Dale had me do public speaking. He was like, why don't you tell those stories at my golf tournament for a couple of grand instead of $50? Exactly. So that kind of, so again, it was very last minute. I didn't really want to do it even, or a little different than you did. But you started brainstorming for something, and you latched onto it. You gave it everything you got. And, I don't want to count chickens too early here for myself or you, but we seem to be in a better spot, at least a more comfortable spot than we were then. So I'm just merely saying that I can relate to some of what you're saying. No, at least the adversity in life.
It's like when I was, when I couldn't get a job in broadcast and had to pivot, I was 37. I was in Brandon living at my mom's on unemployment. Like that's where I was.
That'll give you a once over in your brain, won't it? I know I've been there, man. You're like, what the fuck am I doing? And not only that, having been successful, like it's one thing. I don't want to say it's good to be used to or to some level of not being successful.
Mhm.
But when you've been there, like, you know,
Yeah.
I was like that in my mid-30s. I'm like, fuck, I skated around in the NHL,
Yeah.
man. I'm here
It's
living
a
in my
mind.
fucking bed that I grew up in. What?
Yeah, no, it really is, and it was tough. Like and that's the thing. Like when I speak, I tell my story, and I think no matter what you do or where you're from, there's nuggets in my story, and that's actually the piece
100%.
that
Yeah.
people really draw into, because it's just. But you know, through that process, you know, you learn a lot, whether you like it or not. And tomorrow, if ESPN says we're done with you, I know that I'm going to be okay, and that's what that taught me. And so that's really that's a place of power. So that's great. But can I ask you a question now?
Wow, of course.
Okay,
I
can I turn
speak
it?
too much.
This is what I do. So I mean, I've gone like a good hour without asking a question.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
Very
We'll.
hard for me. Very hard for me. Okay, so I've started. So we have a commonality. Another one is that we're both on Hulu, because my games are on Hulu as part of our Disney ESPN package, because Disney owns ESPN, and you know,
Didn't even realize that. I'll check it out.
our games are on Hulu, and then obviously, if I'm not mistaken, Shoresy is on Hulu as well.
Yeah.
So I have, you know, you have to forgive me, because like all I do is watch hockey, which times, but I got to watch a few episodes. So I saw that Tessa and Jay and them were on the very first episode last. So I'm wondering, like, where's my walk on? Like, where, or can we do like you know, like in Major League, you know, do you need a play-by-play and a fun, colorful color person that we could cast me in to do some of kind of like in Major League and in dodgeball and have those kind of things? So I'm pitching myself right now, very like in your face pitching myself. Like I'm.
You know what? Okay, not a bad place to pitch either, because Jared, for me to say he's the lifeline of the show would be another understatement.
Yes.
There's been creators and there's been creators. This is Jarrett's in his head. And he listens to at least every podcast I have with a guest. I do 2 a week, one solo, one with a guest. Jarrett listens to all these, so you couldn't have dropped that in any better place.
I'm willing to audition. I am willing to, you know, I'm willing to work for it. So yeah, but I just I saw them.
Yeah, you'd be a good fit.
I was like, if Allright could be on there, like I could handle this, I'm sure. So
yeah, hey, you know what? Who knows where he's going, but it certainly can't hurt.
Yeah.
And I think we would only be too
role,
lucky.
You need like a, you know, and I can do other things. I could be a stick boy. I mean, it doesn't have to be a play-by-play, but I think that could be, you know, when I'm thinking of the movie Major League, and I don't know if you've seen Dodgeball, but that's just classic with Jason.
Of course I have.
In that role, right? And it's just a little, you know, when you guys are playing, once, you know, as the team gets better and, you know, you guys get more fans in the stands and all that kind of fun stuff and the narrative.
So I'm leaving in 2 weeks to film season 2.
Are you? That's exciting.
And,
That's so exciting.
I don't want to give anything away. I'm so excited. I don't want to give anything away, but who knows? Maybe like I just read the first 3. And it doesn't go anywhere that I thought, first of all.
Fun.
Second of all, I've never ever, now I've been involved in this industry for just over a decade, and I've never once read anything that made me laugh out loud this much.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. I'm still in the first season. I can totally cop to that. I'm on like episode 4, and it's 6 episodes the first season.
Those are always there. Do them on your own time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's great because it's on my Fire Stick. So I couldn't get it before, and then I was like there, and I'm catching up on things because I've had a few days off here.
I appreciate you watching. That
no,
was
it's
honestly
great. It's so Canadian, and the humor just makes me laugh. And I say it's so Canadian in the best way, the way that like I like Schitt's Creek, even though it had this mass appeal, was still so Canadian, and just so brilliant. And I just love it. I love the. And you,
Me too.
As a hockey person, it's even more so. You really.
Yeah. Well, imagine for me. I mean, I always wanted. I had that bone too, like that creative. I mean, I was in creative writing. One day a week growing up, I went to a special school for creative writing. Like we'd do standardized tests, and if you came in the top 1 or 2% in Canada, you got the option to go to this. So there was math students, there was creative writers, and we would go and take like university courses in grades 6 through 9. So it'd be like I could take astrology or William Shakespeare, and so I was always creative, and I always wanted to act. But back then, I got to be honest, captain of the Mount Pro Blades, if I'd started like acting and taking drama, I probably would have gotten shit kicked out back of school.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah. If people knew I wrote poems, it was one thing to write short stories.
Yeah.
And I would like make fun and put my friends in there as characters. That was treading it enough. But if I actually showed them my work of writing poems, definitely another fist fight. So I kind of kept it bottled under. But I do, for a long time. And now, so I guess what I'm getting at is that playing in the NHL, I don't want to downplay that because it was wild. Skating out for my first game, it was just so wild. But so I'm not trying to be cocky, and never was I in that. I was always humble and happy to, looking back now, even I know I didn't live up to expectations, but the fact that I wore that, like you say, don't burn bridges, I'm glad I didn't, because I'm so happy now to have worn that fucking jersey, and the GM who cut me, I go to games with. I don't care anymore. I played for the Montreal Canadiens, and if I had said, fuck you guys, I wouldn't be able to go back. And so anyway, but all of that happened, but I expected to play hockey. But I didn't expect to be an actor. And the whole time, so that was completely gone. My creative writing or acting or whatever it was, that was over. And I just happened to have a book that, my book was just writings over the years because I'm an only child. One thing led to another. So for me to be on this now, I feel unbelievably fortunate. As definitely lucky. And I know I worked hard, totally. I did 5 or 6 years camera crew, locations, production assistant, jump how fucking high, get me my coffee.
Yeah.
I'm a director, that kind of thing. But I did not see this coming. So I really appreciate it. Don't worry about, everybody, a lot of people haven't seen it. A lot of my buddies haven't seen it. But at some point, if you sit back and watch, all I can say is that it was a paycheck. Honestly, if they asked me, I would have done it supposing it was a mayonnaise commercial. But it ended up being Shoresy, and I'm on it, and I can't fucking believe it. Every day I wake up, I knock on wood.
I just love the digs. I love when you guys are sitting in the dressing room and just telling these guys that you're the worst on the team. It's
hard to do that without laughing.
That would be my worry, is that
it happens,
kind of thing. But again, I've done one Sports Select commercial. I did that 2 years ago, and that's what I have in my place. That's my resume for to try to get me through the door. So,
hey, like you said, you got to start somewhere.
You do.
Kiso's listening. There you go.
I'll even be an extra. Just a server in the bar. I'll be pouring beers. I was a bartender back in the day. I can do that.
I think it might work though. Your actual meta reality. I think in between benches at some point.
There we go.
Who comes in? We're on our bench. You're on their bench. You're in, or there's a lot of chirping in Shoresy. So for you to get caught.
I love how quick I love the wordplay, and I love how fast you guys speak, because I'm a quick talker, and it's just the connection between the brain and that, and just to try to it's just so funny. I just laugh my ass off.
Hey man, I'm with you. My favorite TV show ever is probably Arrested Development.
Oh, so good.
At least comedy. It's all wordplay, right? And it's you each sentence. It's wild. Each sentence, and I find
10 times, and you'll catch different things.
I know different things
because that's how
it's
smart
so good. And Letterkenny is just a step off of that for me. It's just I don't even want to say worse. It's almost like 1A and 1B because it's the same sort of thing. It's the only difference with Arrested Development. It's almost like solving a math problem, because the more and more you watch it, you're like, oh, that connects with this.
Yes.
This in episode 3 connects with this in 2 years later in episode 7, season 3, right? That's there's a little bit more web going on.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm a huge fucking fan. I don't know, I like Letterkenny, I like Seinfeld. Imagine just finding yourself being the soup Nazi for just that's how I feel. That's what happened to me.
Yeah. No, it's so good. And I'm so glad you guys have another season coming, and that's just great. And it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
I got just a few more. I call them rapid fire randoms. Do you mind that?
It's I'll see how good I am at them.
10 minutes maybe. Okay, here we are. Leah Hextall, rapid fire randoms. Here we go. You've walked into the play-by-play booth and someone has stolen your lunch and you're pissed off. You've had enough. This whole world has taken you by storm, and finally it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and you turn around and you knife You knifed to death the server who stole your meal. Now you're on death row. This is in Texas, by the way. You're on death row.
Okay.
You only have one meal left. I didn't need to add all that stuff. What's your favorite meal? You're on death row. What's the meal?
Jeez,
But you have murdered somebody.
that is so tough. Oh my God. You know what? It's going to sound really basic, but it's my mom's hamburger, her potato salad, beans, and deep fried French fries.
I'd rather specific, but those were
Yeah, it's what I
usually
ask for my
specific, like its
birthday meal.
ingredients.
It's my birthday meal when I'm with her. Every time I go home on my birthday, that's what I ask for. That's what I want.
Interesting. Say that again. A burger.
So it's her burger, and she
potato
makes her
salad.
burger. So it's a burger, obviously, with like all the fixings
Yeah.
on it, and then her potato salad, which is the best potato salad in the world, and then just Heinz beans out of the can, and then she makes homemade French fries that she deep fries.
Is that a family thing or your specific
It's
favorite?
my specific meal. It's my favorite thing. It reminds me of summer. It reminds me of everything. It's just tasty, and then I'd have like, I'd probably have to have a couple glasses of champagne if I was allowed, because that's my drink of choice. So I'd probably be doing that with it.
Interesting.
It wouldn't really fit, but it would work.
Hey,
Here's
whatever.
some bubbles. That would
It's your
be my
last meal.
final
Fucking
meal.
run down a bottle of wine. Do whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Slip in an Ambien. Maybe it'll hurt less.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Trip to Mars and back. Okay, so you're on this ship. You're an innovator. They're looking at getting a cast of men and women to go to Mars to do some research and come back, and they're calling on the first woman ever to do play-by-play nationally. So you're lucky. You all get your own spaceship, and now you got to pick one of these two guys
Okay.
and one of these two girls to go with.
You know how I feel about sharing my space, but okay, got it.
Yeah, I know. That's why.
Yeah.
So you got to do it. It's not a huge space either.
Yeah.
These are 6 small rocket ships. I'm on one, and I'm taking Paul McCartney and Lady Gaga. So you're taking, now you get to pick Simon Cowell or Keanu Reeves, and then Scarlett Johansson or Meryl Streep. One guy and one girl.
Oh, well, Meryl Streep for sure.
Okay.
And I think I would probably, God, this is hard because these are people that I would never.
Keanu Reeves is a nice guy by all
Yeah.
means. Simon
I
Cowell's a bit of
wonder
a
if I
tip,
could
but he might be
get
interesting to travel with.
That's the thing. I feel like Simon Cowell we'd have more bounce off of each other, and he'd be more interesting to chat with.
You know what? I think, and for some reason, even if he knew nothing about being an astronaut, I would be confident that he could solve the problem. If some reason he gives off that
he's got
aura.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Problem solver aura.
Yeah.
I know. I as I asked the question, I leaned towards Simon as well. Okay, now, same thing, Mars and back. Okay, now the trip was successful.
Okay.
Now we're going to colonize Mars, so you got to go back. But now it's it's just you and one other person. And this person has to be the chef, and it has to be someone from your work or your family.
Okay.
No celebrity. Just who would you take to be the chef? Your mom?
No, it'd be my brother-in-law, Lucien.
Lucien. Okay. Tell us a little bit about Lucien.
So Lucien is probably the most amazing chef cook I've ever experienced. He is, him and my sister are big time hunters, and they pretty much don't ever have to buy meat because they do it all themselves. And he cooks game in a way that you would never know it's game. And it's unbelievable in everything he does. He's a Métis Canadian, and he is just such an amazing chef in everything he makes. He makes the best meals out there. So it's
a fantastic answer. Now, you know what? Good news for you and Lucien, because they just added a third seat to this pod. And this person has to do the music.
Okay.
It has to be someone that you like in your inner circle, family, friends, work, whatever.
The music. That's a tough one. I don't know if I trust a lot of people's musical taste.
There you go. Well,
I think I'd probably say my girlfriend Jana, who's been one of my friends for 25 years, because her and I have similar music.
25 years, that puts her in Brandon. That means she's a country fan.
She does have country, and that's a big thing for me, but she also likes other things that I like. And we also have the 90s where we grew up in early 2000s. So all those kind of songs from back then that still bring up memories and that you still love, even if they're one-hit wonders or whatever they might be. So I think I'd put her in charge as the DJ.
speaking of late 90s,
Mhm.
so one thing the Canadians were great at, one thing that they did, so at the end of every year, they would call up me. While I was in the minors, so 3 years in Fredericton, I spent little bits up top, but it was usually towards the end
Mhm.
because they'd want me to finish the year with the team. So then you're on a list. So Planet Hollywood. So say Jose Theodore, myself, Brad Brown. I remember that. I think Aaron Asham. We
Oh,
finished the
the
year
Manitoba
technically.
boy, Aaron Ash.
Yeah, Portage. I go to his golf tournament in
I've done
Portage.
his golf tournament as well back when I was working at CTV in Winnipeg.
Yeah, see, there
Yeah.
you go. I was going to ask you about that. So it's
Yeah.
off years, and I might go this year. He's just not sure if he's going to have it yet. But not just because busy. I mean, he's going to continue having it, but it is a lot of work, and his friends take care of it. But anyway, what was I saying?
They would put you on the roster at the end of the year.
Yes, at the end of the year, so that we would be included in these things. So Planet Hollywood was opening one June or July. So I was literally playing a right field in a baseball game. Went in between innings, and my mom came up and said, Jose's calling you. I'm like, Theodore never calls me. Like, there must be a reason. He said, Are you going? Are you going? Flew up the next day. I went to this opening of Planet Hollywood, and I sat down and had a meal with Sporty Spice. It was wild.
Oh, wow.
Her, Barry Bonds, what a weird crew, okay?
That is something.
Barry Bonds, Stallone, Bruce Willis, Cindy Crawford. Now, there were other people littered at this table.
Yeah.
And Wesley Snipes. And I was kind of in the corner with Dennis Rodman, Carmen Electra, Sporty Spice, and Wesley Snipes. And sat there and told stories. Didn't tell them that I'd only had like 3 games in the NHL at the time. I'm sure they thought I was the captain, by the way.
Yeah, they'd have no clue. You could have told them you were Wayne Gretzky, and they would have still not even known who Wayne Gretzky was.
You're exactly right. We had a great time. Yeah, we had a great time, and then we all hit the bar across the street. And I knew a little bit about that. And I didn't want to be back then. Now you just follow him on. I didn't want to get anybody's number. I probably could have asked. Who knows? But I mean, that was it. It's a story. I don't need to be in touch with Sporty Spice every day. Not that she would have given me her number. You know what I'm saying? We had a good time. Wesley Snipes at least seemed to. How many Big Macs have you ever eaten?
I don't know if I have. I don't think I have. It's not my burger choice at McDonald's.
Yeah, you're either a Big Mac person or you're not. That's why I asked the question. Every time you cross the street or ride an escalator for the rest of your life, a song plays. So it's not all that you might go a week without a song playing, but you're going to cross the street or ride an escalator. So this song is going to be played a lot the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's kind of going to be your not soundtrack, but partly.
Mm-hmm. Probably I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is, as far as pop beats go, that is a fastball down the middle.
It just makes me happy every time I hear it. So that's it.
It's great because Penny Lane just turned 13. And when I was 12, say, maybe a little bit before that, maybe 10, but I would listen to Patsy Cline all the time because my grandmother and my mother really liked Patsy Cline. And then I watched the movie and I was like, Jesus. And she spoiler alert, she died in like 1958. But I had no idea. I'm like, I hear her on the radio. Like,
yeah.
And Penny Lane's the same sometimes because I've always tried to, I mean, I let her. She's open to listen to whatever the hell she wants to, but I'm like, I will litter her thoughts with important music, with whatever I think.
Yeah.
Or it could be Beethoven, it could be the Beatles, might be the Stones. I don't know, the Spin Doctors, whoever kind of change, because there's a historical element, and you like to be in on conversations and have a knowledge. I think a lot of pop culture history is as important as all history. I mean,
yeah, I'm so influenced by my parents' music. So much of what we listen to is what we listen to in car rides because they controlled. Like Elton.
Yeah, and you don't want to
like it
only drive the ship. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The Beatles.
So I didn't want her to only be listening to Metallica or whatever I'm into, but I always littered it, right? So, and that includes videos. And so every night we'll watch at least a half hour of, say, a documentary, or sometimes if it's an important movie, we'll watch that and talk about like. Maybe even she acts and stuff, and she wrote scripts. Even from what did you like about that video? Did you see the way they cut that? So we are always talking, but she didn't realize because I'd had Whitney Houston on so much that Whitney Houston was dead. You look at these videos. And it's one thing about YouTube is that they could all it doesn't date itself much. Like sometimes if you don't know,
Yeah, they're just living
then
forever.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know, right, we would have to go out of our way to get a VHS and go, okay, this is so and so in 1968 at this concert. But when it's just like video after video after video, and you see, I don't know, Katy Perry, and then the next video is Whitney Houston, and the next video is Cyndi Lauper. If the videos themselves aren't dated, which I Want to Dance with Somebody isn't,
Yeah.
you never really know, right? And I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
$322 million you're offered.
That's specific.
But the rest of your life, you got to wear an eye patch, and your name is Paulina Pirate. And and you have to answer every question someone asks you, you have to start it with yar. Do you take 322 million?
Every single question?
Well,
or just like the first one that I'm asked by someone and then I can be normal?
I'll give you that.
Okay.
Yar, so every time you run into somebody, at the very least, you have to yell yar. And
I have to wear an eye patch for the rest of
you have to wear an eye patch. That's it. The rest of your life, you have to wear an eye patch. And
this should be an easy answer. It should be like a real quick yes. That's a lot of money. You could do so much. But just after wearing a mask for a year and how much I, was like so ready to be done with that, I don't know if I could do the eye patch.
Well, you're confident. So that's why, I mean, it could be 822 million. I don't think after it's a few million, I mean, what does it matter anyway, right? You buy yourself over and over again. But yeah, I could see, and you're very driven on, self-pride and things and accomplishment, as am I. So I think that it's easy to say, yes, you'd take it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to be Paulina Pirate.
I could live with that. But that would be really hard, like to have a patch on for the rest of my life.
It's true. It's 322 million.
I know.
Your favorite sports jersey ever?
Oh, that's a really good question. Geez. It's going to be so cliche if I go with hockey, but I think those are, I think the sweaters are, when you see them up close, the detail in them is really beautiful.
It more so, I mean, football and basketball. Really,
yeah, it's so different.
Often just a color with a number on it. Football.
Yeah.
Right? Basketball's.
I go back to the original six. Like I really think, I think the Canadiens sweater is really beautiful. I love the colors of it, but like Toronto in their whites, the team, like just the detail, like, and the Ranger, like, I mean, that's a hard one. It would be one of those three probably.
It's funny it gravitates there. Even in baseball, I go like to the Yankees and the Red Sox, and they're just so standard.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, like now, the one I like the most is Florida's retro reverse with the golf club on it, and that's cool. It's so cool, and when you see it up close, it's really quite fantastic.
And do you know?
It's horrible to call. You don't want them to wear it. Like I've sent notes to their AGM saying, I'm calling your game. I do not want to see them in these sweaters because it is way too hard and you can't see them. You look at things so differently when you're in the booth because it's all about seeing things. But yeah, I just think when it comes to tradition, like I think for me, just because the family connection too, like the Rangers sweater is right up there for me. I think pretty iconic. It is.
There's something to be said about nostalgia, and I think osmosis or whatever that is. It's just in the back of my head, like a hockey jersey is an original six jersey. A baseball jersey has Yankees or Red Sox on it. And there's.
I love the Yankees because they don't put their names on the back to this day.
Love it.
I love it because it's not about the individual, it's about the team. And even though I worked in Boston and I covered the Red Sox and they won a World Series and I've got such affection for the Sox, it's just something about that, that iconic. And the fact that there's, even in this day and age with all the TV and everything, there's still no name on the back. That it really impresses me.
I know. They're going out of their way to do it now. And it says a lot too.
It does.
I'm guessing the message inside the clubhouse is, the name on the front is more important, right?
Yeah, exactly. The way it should be, right?
Yeah.
But so it's there's two of them, and they both come from New York. But
I think my favorite would be the Blackhawks, and I think all in all, if I didn't know anything, it's hard to put yourself there, hard to be objective. But I think, and something I like about the Leafs and the Red Wings is that they only have two colors, and I really. I don't think there's another hockey team that does that.
No,
But
Red Wings is really good too. That's another one.
it's just simple. It's white and red. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, other than the symbol. Same with the Leafs.
Yeah.
But I like that. And I'm guessing as well that back in the day it was probably expensive to get a third color. I don't know.
Oh, it might be. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
right.
It might have been.
Way back in the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, now you could change one rule about hockey. What would it be?
Well, right now, it's the one rule that I would. Well, I guess it's already in there. I'm tired of people delivering clean hits and then having to fight, and I think that the person who comes in, it should have to be a penalty.
Fair enough. I never thought I'd say that. But yeah, I don't even really understand it.
If you're delivering, because now there's no hitting in hockey pretty much. And so you deliver these hits that I grew up on and suddenly that guy's got to fight, then why shouldn't the other team be penalized for that as an instigator?
It's so weird. There's no hits and then someone decides to give this
it's crazy.
Battleship fucking bonkers hit at center ice. And I also I was always aware of, like, if I was playing against Trouba, I would know where he was. Like, I always knew where Scott Stevens was. Yeah.
Me and Brian Boucher were having a drink and we were we were working a game and we had such a great conversation about this because we're on pretty much on the same page on this. I don't want to speak for him, but these kids are being brought up nowadays where they can put their head down and skate through center ice because there's no hitting in the game growing up, and they have no situational awareness of who's on the ice. And it's like, you need to understand who's on the ice. You need to keep your head up. That is just basic 101. And, it blows my mind that we've gotten to this point. And anyways, I digress.
Put your head down. No, but you're right. See, this is what I mean. You don't have to play to pick that up. I'm telling you the truth.
You have a responsibility about the position of your body. Even when you go into the boards, you need to be aware of who's coming in at you.
Totally. If I'm in practice, Leah, I swear to you, I still feel naked. Like when I put my head down and I'm looking at the puck coming through the middle. It's just like, do not, especially if there's hitting. And I'm going, Jesus, these guys got their head. I don't know. They got to the NHL. I don't think you used to be able to get there without something happening along the way.
But TR is that because the game has changed, and yes, I love the skill of it, and I really do. But like I've said, I think I'm bored a lot of games. I think we're losing a lot by there not being the physicality that there once was. And I'm not talking about fighting. I'm talking about just the physicality of the game.
Just the feeling of tense.
These young players, as amazing as they are in the skill set they have that are coming up, they have come up in a version of hockey where if you have the puck, it means you're protected, that nobody can touch you because you're not even getting interference, the clutching, the grabbing. That's been taken out of the game pretty much, which is great. But they've come up with this understanding that if I have the puck, I'm not going to get touched. And that's the wrong thing. That's when you should get touched. That's when you should get hammered because I'm trying to get the puck away from you.
Totally.
So it's just,
And that's the sport. That's what makes it hard. I know the goals look great and every Michigan, great. And hats off. It can happen 10 times.
It's fun. It's great. I love it.
It's fun. But
I'm not a trudgy traditionalist in that sense.
Me neither. But exactly.
Yeah, you got to
understand that to get there, you're going to have to go through this player, and you might get cleaned out. Like you can't just do that.
Who's on the ice with you? Like that should just be, you want to know who's on the ice for you, not even about hitting. You want to know because you got to be aware. And but like if that's a very new thing that we're starting to talk about as the game evolves. But probably my biggest thing is I hate a high stick. Either make it a 2-minute minor or a 4-minute. Make your mind up. I'm so sick of seeing guys do that. As soon as a high stick is a high stick, whether you're injured or not. So either make it a 4-minute or make it a 2, but make a decision on it because I'm so tired.
It almost sounds absurd though, doesn't it? Oh, you drew blood? It's a 2-minute. It sounds like
no. It's like it's a high stick as a high stick, in my opinion.
Drew blood.
So I'm just make it one or the other. I don't care what it is. If you want to make it a 4-minute, fine. But don't be doing this so that we're not seeing this as soon as it happens.
How many scars I got from the inside of my mouth from biting it in a big game?
Right?
Really?
Right?
Why not? Like to me, it was like, well, I don't want to block that shot. Okay, but I just got high sticked, and I don't want to. But I'm going to bite my lip, and he's going to get 4 minutes, 2 extra minutes for us to score a goal. I wasn't the first one to do that, I'm sure.
And an injury should, if that's the rule, which as I know from Dave Jackson now it is, it's about injury. And injury means you are leaving the bench at least for a period of time. And if you have to do that, then it's a 4 minute. Like they've got to do something about that, because when the games matter in the playoffs, it's such crap when it comes to that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I would probably, that would be a close second, but the first thing, I think this, at first I liked it, but now I don't. The replay on the offsides. I know there's replays for certain things.
I get you.
But how anticlimactic when they go back for like 3 minutes and they go, oh, that was offside. And you're like, Jesus, I'm half done my popcorn. What are you talking about? When was it offside? When? And then you look and it's like, you can barely tell on TV. Like as a player, it wouldn't bother me one bit. I go, okay, that evens itself out. Now I can see hitting the goalie or if the puck crossed the line.
Yeah.
There are times that, of course, but I don't know. I find it this weird zone now. Let's not be on the video replay all night.
The minutia. Like when we started to review offside, it was simple. But then the players got smart and they're lifting their skates and we're like, well, now there's this invisible plane. What do you mean? What do you mean break the plane? Like what are you talking about?
There was one last year in the playoffs that I would have said was offside by 2 feet. Like, remember that? I think it was Makar. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was Makar. And it's just, and the speed of this game, like I have such empathy. I know people harp on the refs all the time, but like now that I've been down there, how fast it is. I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to see all these things because I know when I'm calling a game, I'm puck watching. So if something happens, there's a lot. That's why my analyst is there. I'll see the hand go up and I know what team it's against, but I might have not seen the play because I'm watching the guys in the corner on the puck and it happens back here. It's so hard. And I just think that there's something about taking the humanity out of the game.
Yeah.
And it's, yes, we want to get it right. I understand that because there's been some egregious things that have happened in the past and Stanley Cups and all that kind of stuff. But there's a part of it where it's just like, maybe we need to limit this in some ways because it's getting to the point where it's so difficult to tell sometimes.
And it's taken away from the game. It's the wind out of the sails. It takes the momentum out of a game.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like I said, you need it. But I remember one egregious offsides in my lifetime. The buddy was about 10 feet off. I don't know if it was Hoffman, maybe. It was like 10 years ago. Something. It was way offside. Clearly someone missed it. That's an outlier.
Yeah.
But like these ones that go back, none of the fans even ever realize it. Well, they're going, what? Yeah. What? When was it offside? And now you're almost like the Edmonton game the other night. There was 3 of them. Like you're just like, oh shit, what offsides? 2 by the net, and a lot of the time we don't know anyway. It's like it still could be 50-50.
Yeah. It's a tough one. It's really tough.
You're doing a study on African pine beetles in the jungle. You got to go there for 6 months, so you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're in a little hut. You're taking care of.
Last summer, so I'm in on this. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so you've got 2 albums you can take.
Oh, geez. Okay.
It can be a greatest hits package. It can be whatever. What would you pick?
Well, I think I would take Elton John. He's got the 4. I'm going to date myself, but he put out the 4 CD package of all of his greatest ones. I think Elton would come with me.
Yeah, that's never
and I think Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette would come with me.
Wow. That's a fucking.
It was a big album in my life.
I won't say underrated because it was huge when it came out.
It's still like I just watched her documentary about it actually, and she's still the 12th most I think sold album ever and the most by a female.
It's wild how, not why I asked the question, but we're kind of getting away from that because she was synonymous for a while with Jagged Little Pill, but now albums don't matter. No one even knows what an album is. It's, whatever. Oh, this is what's happening. This sound is happening on TikTok, but there's not much. There's not much as far as,
And it goes beyond, You Ought to Know, which obviously was such an anthem in so many ways, but it's the whole album is so good. Like you can start it from top to bottom and listen to it and Hands in Pocket is that the name of it? That's probably my favorite. I like that beat, gritty beat, and I always love that album. Anyway, okay, now you get the same trip, so you're 6 months. African Pine Beetles. You got your 2 albums to keep you company. You got your candles. You got 1 book to pick. Which book? Oh God, If I went by the book that I've read the most, like I've read Catcher in the Rye multiple times,
Interesting.
which is funny. The reason I have to reread it is I can't remember it. I
Well, that's
remember the
classic.
beginning at the football game and they walk over this hill and then I forget the rest of it. So like I always have to like go back and read it because I know how much I love it.
Interesting. I'm like that with many books.
Yeah,
I read mostly
that's a tough one.
nonfiction, but
Yeah.
something like that. Years ago, I tried to go back and I made a pact with myself that I would watch the 100 greatest movies and, any number of books that I hadn't, these classics. And I've really gone a long way with it. I'm pretty, I won't say impressed with myself, but I'm happy with the results because I never would have forced myself otherwise.
Mhm.
Like when would A Catcher in the Rye come down the docket now? And if I don't take
Yeah.
a course, no one's ever going to bring it up, or Moby
No.
Dick, or any of it. Even Shakespeare. But anyway,
Yeah. I should
not to
probably
make
do
it about
something
me.
more entertaining, but I really don't know. Yeah, there's so many good books. I love books. In the summer, that's all I do is I create a reading list and I knock.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send you out my book for doing the
Oh,
podcast.
that'd be great.
I have two. I'll give you my first one. How's that? Same Trip TV show. Two TV shows.
I think it's either The Office or Seinfeld, because
Great
those
picks.
are just those are two things that I have literally watched those shows through every single
I got my daughter's Leah Hextall, Penny
multiple
Lane,
times.
right here. The first female play-by-play nationally.
your daughter?
I showed you yesterday. It's my daughter Penny Lane on her way to soccer.
Named after the song, I assume?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great. That's so great.
But the
That's a
Beatles
good
right
one.
here.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Um,
You're really a Beatles.
Big on the Beatles. Yeah,
Yeah.
Penny Lane is
Yeah, it's a good
my
one.
heart in more than one way. And anyway, we're watching all the Seinfelds now. We've got more down than not. I guess it's been 2 months,
Okay.
and pretty much every night we watch at least one episode.
Yeah. They're
And,
just so good. And I
boy.
didn't appreciate when it was actually on. I
No, not
wasn't
as much.
smart enough to appreciate it, and I
Yeah,
didn't
I
watch
know.
it when it was on. And then as an adult, I'm like, no wonder people are like, this is the best show that's ever existed.
So innovative at the time too.
Yeah.
Like it just right away when streaming happened, it took that luster away. I'm not saying one's any better than the other. It's nice to have
Mhm.
things to stream all the time, but I do remember Thursday nights getting together with my buddies. I'm a little bit older than you. I was coming into my own, like in Tri-Cities. I was
My
playing Major
buddies got
Junior.
together and watched it. Like my
Yeah.
my
Well, I guess
sister,
if
yeah.
she was 13 the other day. She was 12. Yeah. It's not like you can't get the concepts.
Yeah.
I think pre-10 would be a little young, but 12, 13 and on, yeah. But you're right. I didn't appreciate the brilliance as much at the time because it was just part of everyday life, but I did enjoy it. It was my favorite show, and I remember every Thursday going over to whoever's house and getting together, and there was something to that,
No, I get it. Yeah. Appointment viewing.
Yeah, very
Must
much.
see TV as it was called back in the day.
Yes, must-see TV Thursday nights,
Yeah.
followed by Friends. First childhood memory for you?
Oh, goodness. Like first first thing I ever remember in my life, or like first poignant childhood memory?
No, you're good question, but the first thing you remember, I was in Kalamazoo, my dad was playing there, and a tornado was coming in, and I remember seeing the tornado. First thing I remember, standing on the washer dryer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
My first thing that's coming to my mind is my 3rd birthday and the cake I had. And I got a Barbie Corvette.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was big too. Speaking of 80s,
Yeah.
Barbie Corvette was
Pink.
where it was
It was
at.
pink.
You had that or none of they tried Ken. I don't know. It might have worked for the girls, but I never liked Ken. But I had Barbie Corvette was exactly like the Batmobile on the other side. They just had blue paint
And
on
I
it.
had a Fisher Price typewriter I got. as
Oh,
well.
I remember that. The
It was
Fisher
orange
Price
and white.
typewriter.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like those. For some reason, that birthday is the very first thing I kind of remember. And
Well, that's
yeah,
you're around 3. I was around
Yeah.
3.
yeah,
I guess it's something to do with their brains developing.
yeah.
Are you into other sports?
Yes, yes. I
Which one? Would say what's would be the second favorite sport?
golf.
Golf.
Yeah.
Do you play?
Yeah, love it.
Really?
Love it.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I'm so bad, and I play ball hockey a lot in the summers, so I'm just not good at golf. I play at the charity events, of which there are.
I didn't say I was good
enough.
at it, but I love it, and I'm okay at it. If I golfed a lot, I think I could be pretty good. So
I just got it last night for PS4. Do you have a PS4?
no, I've never been a video game. I still like Nintendo. I still like Tetris, Super Mario. Like those are my games. Those are my jam.
Super Mario and Tetris.
Oh,
Tetris,
I
one of
don't
my
want these
favorite all
fancy
time. We
games.
just
I
got that.
can't handle it. I just want my basic Nintendo, and that's it.
Aliens come here. Now you got to make them dance, or else humanity immediately gets blown out of existence.
Okay.
They said you got to make them dance. Which song do you pick?
I mean, I almost go back to my Whitney Houston song because there's not a lot of people that can hear that song and don't get up and move or tap their toe in some way or another. Because it's
Hell, the word dance is right in it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to think of another one, but there's so many. I just can't. I'm so bad at songs and stuff.
Well,
because I listen to music
if I
all
had
the
to
time.
make them dance, I mean, I know what I'd want to play them. My favorite dance songs, I mean, I don't know. Where would I go with that? Somewhere in the 90s, maybe CNC Music Factory or.
Yeah.
But like, really, I'd probably pick a cheesy one because that's cheesy ones. I don't know, Lou Bega, a little bit of,
Well, I want to
or
dance.
Macarena. They would dance to the Macarena. It's not going to be the first song I play, but come on, if they hear the Macarena.
Yeah, it's something that makes your body and so yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know,
I'll go with that one again.
Humanity, no pressure. Humanity's at risk. Same thing. Not quite an alien.
Okay.
There's someone who's very educated. They're up on everything. They know. They watch hockey. They've gone to university. They've lived a life. They're married with kids. They just never have seen a movie.
Oh,
and you're trying to convince them that movies are good. Give me 3 movies.
Oh, these people are going to be like, you are such, like, what is this girl watching? I think Goodfellas.
Good pick.
Wizard of Oz.
Nice. Yanked that one out of there.
Yeah.
That's an old classic, boy.
One of my all-time favorites. And Beauty and the Beast from Disney.
3 movies that all
in the cartoon format, not in the people version.
Yeah.
And there's so many, but yeah, I almost threw Sound of Music in there because I watch Sound of Music and Wizard of Oz every year. There's so many.
You know what? I didn't every year, and Wizard of Oz comes up every few years. But last summer, I sat down and watched The Sound of Music again. Forced myself to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, all I'll ever see. What's her name again? She's out. I said, all I'll ever remember from this movie is, I can't remember the girl's name, and she's out frolicking around the fields with mountains in the background. I go, I got to watch it because I got to know more about The Sound of Music, and I did, and I liked it.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. Like it's a classic. But I'm a big Disney girl. I have all the VHSs, like of all the back in the day.
Interesting.
But yeah, Goodfellas is. It's like I love those type of movies.
3 of those picks, so you can't go wrong with either. I bet you they all got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or close to.
Yeah.
Your favorite TV character ever?
Oh my God, these are so hard. My favorite TV character ever.
Or I guess one of. If you like Seinfeld.
I do like Seinfeld, but I don't necessarily like the character. You know what I mean? Because they're all
they're all really despicable.
Yeah,
that's
exactly right.
Funny about it. When I went back and watched, I said to Penny Lane, they're all really, even Jerry, who's not really an actor, they're all good at physical. Kramer, obvious physical humor, but they're all playing pricks, really, and they really pull it off. Like you're cheering for them and you're laughing along with them. But if you just read those scripts. They're not as funny as they appear when you watch them because, again, they're laughing at people dying and all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Bubble boys and
exactly. I'm a big fan of Parks and Rec as well, and I think Amy Poehler as Leslie Knope is very good in it. The way she plays that character is pretty sensational.
My favorite cold opening is when she does she goes through all the words of Parents Don't Understand. They have the best cold openings to me.
Yeah.
It's all Parks and Rec to me is one little step down from The Office, same kind of humor, and I really like it. The Office is in my top 5 ever.
Yeah.
But they have the best cold openings.
Like Ron, her boss, is pretty fantastic. I'm just finished watching Last of Us, which was so freaking good.
Hey, yeah, me too. And playing the game. I finished the game.
I
went out
so long to a game. I learned that because my stylist, I'll give a shout out to my stylist.
Game is wild.
Yeah, Crystal McKenzie, my stylist, was the buyer for all his jacket that's gone viral. She was the one who found that and had to find 1 million copies of it because they had to beat it up to different things. So she's in the credits and everything.
Continuity.
So very proud of her. So she was a big part of that in Calgary.
Wild, yeah. So I I finished the game the other day, which is why it's what a rollicking story. I don't usually go
Okay.
games for that reason. And I play games at night, like if I get all my work done. Like it took me probably 6 months. I just do the campaign, probably like 15 minutes a night, sometimes less, sometimes more. But it was a great story. And then I just watched the
Yeah,
TV show as well. Very
that's
similar.
very good.
You get free drinks for life. So not just alcohol. You get coffee, beer, milk, whatever it is. Liquid, you get free for the rest of your life. All you have to do is never wear hats again or jeans.
Yeah, could do that.
Wow, you go without wearing a hat.
I never wear hats.
Really?
Yeah, I only wear hats in the summer because I have to, like because I'm not great with heat.
I would think winter because you have to.
Yeah, but you can get away with it, So
Interesting. And so that's not even a decision. And
yeah, and you said hats, so I could wear earmuffs.
True. I guess. Yeah, look, you found a loophole in my
Yeah.
system already. What's your favorite board game?
Favorite board game. Well, back in the day, I think I'll go back to when I was a kid. The one that we probably played the most was Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Nice. That was a family game here as well. That and Trouble.
Yeah, Monopoly. Those were all big ones. Yeah.
Favorite athlete? We're almost done. Favorite athlete in another sport?
Favorite athlete in another sport? Serena Williams.
Oh, yeah. Great pick. Well, you could make an argument, greatest athlete ever, of course. You've got a hot air balloon ride from the Panama Canal to the Rideau Canal, 7,400 miles, and this is tight space. If you know the way a hot air balloon is,
Yeah,
bit uneasy because I wouldn't feel comfortable. I don't like heights, so you're uneasy and you got to go a long way. You got to pick one person to go with you, and it has to be same thing, a family member or a coworker, somebody close, a friend. Can't be like, say, Simon Cowell.
Yeah, it's my sister.
How many sisters do you have?
I just have one. Just have an older sister, Lindsay. So yeah,
Really?
Yeah, my favorite person in the world. So yeah, her and my mom are very tied, but it's just a different relationship.
And where is Lindsay now?
Lindsay's in Brandon, Manitoba.
Interesting. So you guys really
went back there. She was in Calgary for years, but she went back there for love. So as she likes to say. So my brother-in-law's a cop, so he couldn't really move. So when they met, that was that.
That's a great story. Okay, this is the last question.
Mm-hmm.
All-time team. So here it is. You got to put out an all-time. You ready? Okay, sounds good. All-time team.
Okay.
So can't be Gretzky, no Lemieux, no Orr, no Howe. Top 4 players ever can't be involved, and no Montreal Canadiens. But you get to pick 2D, 3 forwards, and a goalie.
I'm putting Patrick Roy on the net. Oh, I can't. You said Montreal.
Yeah, you're right. Not Patrick Roy. Yeah, you're right.
Oh my God, really? Okay, then I'll do Martin Brodeur. So Marty Brodeur in the net. 2 defensemen, and it can't be Orr's not in there, right?
No, can't be Orr or any Canadians.
Like Canadian players or like Montreal Canadiens, you mean?
Montreal Canadiens.
Okay, good. Defenseman. Who would I put in there? Oh, it's so hard. There's so many good D. I'd probably put Nick Lidstrom in there.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
Love him.
I can't remember my whole lineup, but he was in my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think I had him, Niedermeyer, and Pronger, maybe.
Well, I was going to say Niedermeyer, but might be my other, but I just wonder if they're too parallel. Like, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I know. They are similar.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking
you're a hockey mind, my girl. You're a hockey mind.
I'm thinking of putting somebody who's maybe going to jump up a little bit more and get some action done. But those would be 2. Like, those would be legit. Like, I would feel confident with Niedermeyer and Lidstrom and in my D. And then my forwards, geez, this is hard. It can be like current player. Like I all day long, I'd have Sidney. I'd build a team around Sidney Crosby today. Like I still think he is that guy. So I'd have Sid in there for sure. Oh, this is so hard. It shouldn't be like I should be able to rattle these out better, but I'm just trying to think of I'm trying to think of back when I was like I love Stevie Y. I'd love to put Stevie Y in there.
Stevie Y is one of my favorite players,
He-
people ever.
And
I don't know him. I just mean
I've
as a
never
leader.
met him. I've never interviewed him. I've never met him in all of my hockey time. And he was my favorite player growing up. Him and Lidstrom. I might put Solani in there too. I loved Timu. Those guys, like, and I know I'm naming players back from like, you know, when I was kind of there, but
yeah, but I mean, the question means of all those questions, only
me,
2 or 3 do I ask every single person, and I ask everybody this, and it means something different to everybody. That's why I like to ask.
I'm kind of naming a little bit of favorites too, but they're all sensational players. And the other thing that I think they all have in common is that they're all leaders in their own way, and have heart and grit. And that, to me, you can't win without that. Like, I don't care about all the analytics. I don't care about how skilled you are. When it comes to playoffs and series hockey, if you don't have heart and grit, you're not winning the Stanley Cup.
Well, now listen, Leah, I couldn't have said that any better myself. And your perspective is, I've often thought about it. And you get in and you join the broadcasting world. And a lot of people that don't know any better think that you gotta have played to have a handle on the game, but it's not the case. And the furthest I'll go with that is that I say to people, do you think we all have the same opinion? I can have 5 hockey players that played all different levels of professional hockey, or I'll take 5 NHLers. But if I ask them all, they're all going to have different opinions. So A, I really respect yours. B, I think they're very valid and informed opinions. And really, I do. And I know, like, you're a little hard on yourself when you say, you know, I can get there and, you know, it's about potential because I'll work hard. I know, but you're good anyway. And I think that's a given with everybody else. You had to say that because you're almost justifying the fact that you're a woman and you went through, and I get it. But really, I don't know. I'm sure you know firsthand more than I do, but I think you're a positive ball of energy. That's great for the game. My daughter just walked out. And in a little bit, she doesn't even play hockey. You influenced her. Think about the people that you influenced all over the world, not just with hockey, with just being a confident, smart woman that can get things done. Person, not only woman that can get things done, because the other thing, adversity comes from your side, not only from gender, but, you know, oh, she got it because she's a Hextall. Not the case. You're a very well-read, well-informed hockey fan. It was a privilege to have you on here, and I hope to hear from you again soon.
Well, thank you. I love this. This was great. It was great. Thank you so much for having me on, and hopefully I'll see you when I come out to The Rock in.
Thank you for coming on, and this is it. In return, I've been known to give my friends from the media world, whoever it would be, from the hockey world, friends, relatives in general, if they come here and they haven't been here, I do give a good tour.
Good, I'm glad. I'm going to take you up on that for sure.
You're coming in May, right? That'll be right after I'm done with Shoresy season 2.
There you
I'll be back here May 13th.
Perfect. Right on time.
Well, Leah, thank you. I really appreciate you doing this. I wish you all the success in the future, and I'm sure that you've got a lot left yet, and I hope to see you in May right here in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Leah.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. Leah Hextall. Interesting, innovator. And like I said, one of my favorite quotes ever. I don't even know who said it. We used to say it often in the sports world for one reason or another. And I've heard it in the political world. You know, the first one through the wall is always going to get the most blood on them, right? And it might be a bad way to put it, but, you know, someone that wants to break down barriers is going to get scarred, and they're going to hear it the most and take the most and absorb the most pain and punches or whatever it might be. But, she's well aware that a lot of her toughness, I think, stems from the fact that she knows she's doing it for herself, but other people as well. You know, she's to say a barrier breaker would probably be an understatement. I mean, it'd be true, but, you know, doing things that no one's ever done before you, that's a big deal. And every night, every day that she gets behind a microphone, she's putting herself out there. And if anybody respects that, it's me, because I've been up and I've been down, and I've been, in the media world, had bad days, good days. And I can't imagine actually having to do play-by-play for a national audience, knowing that there was that much pressure on me. It would be tough. But Leah passed with flying colors and is interesting to talk to, and you can tell she has a big-time love for the game of hockey, sports in general, and, everything that goes along with that. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody, and we'll have another great guest next week. Thanks to Leah and, of course, Tom Laidlaw last week. Tom, it was awesome to get to talk to again, and a lot of people, judging by your feedback, really appreciated the conversation. I hope you enjoyed today with Leah Hextall. If you're downtown St. John's this weekend, why not? If you're going to have a beer, why not go into George Street? Go into the Bull and Barrel, TJ's Pub, Greensleeves Pub, Rob Roy Confusion, Martini Bar, or Bull and Barrel. Why not go to Trinity Pub, all those places? Go there for a beer, support local, check out downtown, start spending your money. If you're going to go for a bite to eat, why not do it at Merchant Tavern, Blue on Water, or Wedgwood Cafe? Of course, get out, spend that money. It's spring. The days are longer. The snow's melting more and more every day. It's a positive frame of mind. Get out there, be social, and live a little. It's been a long winter after a couple of long fucking years of COVID. Here we are, coming into a brand new summer that has all kinds of opportunities out there for us. If you want to improve your life, you want to improve your body, you want to improve your mind, stop into Rope Walk Lane Power Conditioning. Ryan Power of Power Conditioning. I swear by it. And I'll be going bright and early tomorrow. Check into it. For your strength and balance, your body and mind, Power Conditioning, Rope Walk Lane. Look no further. Mr. Lube with locations on Torbay Road and Kenmount Road. Mr. Lube right here in St. John's. Check it out. Chris Sparks, one of the best athletes I've ever had the honor to play with, to call a friend. Owns both locations, so why not support a great athlete while you're doing it? Mr. Lube, live, laugh, lube. Pitbull Pain Relief, pain sticks that don't quit. Go to pitbullpainrelief.com. And of course, True Hockey, take what's yours. I hope you enjoyed 147B with Leah Hextall. We'll be back in just a few days with more stories. Catch you on the rebound.